The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello, and welcome back. Wrestling with Johners has returned after a 4-month absence. I think it was over 4 months, sometime in May when I had my last interview. But delighted to be back. And the gentleman on the opposite side of the screen is a big part of the reason why Wrestling with Johners is back on this fine Wednesday. But this is episode 365 of Wrestling with Johners. I felt I needed a little bit of a break after 5.5 years of constant grind, multiple episodes, some weeks. Like I say, I really, I had a busy but fun 5.5 years, but I needed that break. And that break has allowed me to rest, enjoy the summer. I've joined the gym. I'm feeling great. My diet's changed. So I promised a whole new Wrestling with Johners and a whole new Johners, and this is exactly what you're going to get. But my guest for this return episode of Wrestling with Johners is one half of Sacrifice Pros, Saints of Sacrifice Tag Team Champions, and the current United Wrestling future-proof champion, Chris ARES, the Legion King. Chris, awesome to have you back on the show. It's been 18 months, pretty much nigh on a day. But how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, really good. Very busy last week in terms of the name change and then going into a hectic weekend. But a week off from work from my real job, the job that I don't want to have really. Just keeping really well actually.
Now, we are live, as always, across Facebook, across YouTube. So please, if you want to get in touch with the show, if you want to speak to Chris ARES, then please do so. And let's celebrate the return of Wrestling with Johners with Chris ARES and your questions and your comments. So please get in touch with the show. We'll do our very best, as long as they're appropriate, of course, to read all of them out during the course of this interview. But we've got so much ground to cover. And the last time we had Chris on the show was 18 months ago, alongside Artemis, as one half of the Odyssey, of course. And I do very much plan to have Artemis on, in a solo interview before the end of the year, because, like I say, she's got some big matches ahead of her, especially with a certain United Wrestling and UBW as well, and we'll talk about that very, very soon. But before we take a deep dive with Chris and what he's been up to since he last came on the show, and I usually wait until the end of these episodes, but I'm going to announce my next guest, my first guest of the month of October, and it will be next Wednesday, a week today, but an hour earlier, and 8 p.m, Wednesday, the 2nd of October. I've got none other than LA Taylor coming onto the show, the current United Wrestling champion. We'll talk about United Wrestling. We'll talk about, since she was last on the show, it's been 2 years. We'll talk about World of Sports, the taping she's recently been involved in, a recent excursion over to Japan, her breakout across the UK Indies, across the European Indies. And as you saw from the picture there, a bit of a bout collector, not just on the UK scene, but across Europe there. But LA Taylor will be joining me next Wednesday, the 2nd of October. And I think one of the things I'm very, very keen to do with the return of Wrestling with Johners, and I will have the odd new guest that I'm keen to kind of shine a bit of a spotlight on, but I want returning guests like Chris, like LA Taylor, and a few others. And I've already got October booked out with some tremendous people that have already been on the show, and I can't wait to see what they've been up to, how they've been breaking out across the scene since we last spoke. But Chris, I just want to remind my viewers at home, this is what we're on about, isn't it? So the Legion King, or the Conqueror, whichever, the Legion King, Conqueror, they both have a good ring. Chris ARES, and we will get into the name change. We will break all that down a little bit later on, and there he is with some gold. We'll talk about gold a little bit later on, Chris. But I've got to ask you, it's been 18 months since you last come onto the show, and I know that you just had your match with Alexis Falcon and Charles Crowley at UBW alongside Artemis. The Odyssey, of course, just over 18 months ago. We spoke about that. We spoke about your rise as a tag team and your growth as a performer, your growth as a tag team back then. This was a year and a half ago. But the last 18, 12 months, 2024 even, has been absolutely a crazy ride for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you go back to that match, I felt like that was our first test together, really, as to like what we were made of. And I thought we did really well in that match. But when I can like not compare it, but when I see how many big matches that we've had together and like even separate on our own 2 feet since then, it doesn't feel like 18 months. It feels like it's way longer than that. That there's been years in between. So much has happened. And yeah, we've just grown a lot together and apart. I mean, you talk about Artemis and how well she's done. She's appeared on Rev Pro. She's won solo championships all over the shop. We obviously won the Saints of Sacrifice tag championships together, making us a 3-time set of tag team champions, which is humbling. And then even myself, like some of the people that I've worked with in these past 18 months that have just helped me just push that little bit further. And every time I just feel like I'm growing and growing and growing. Until we're here now. And like I said, it's just been a whirlwind. It really is. Life is going so quick. It's passing me by almost, but I just feel like I'm rolling with the punches and and more just keep on getting thrown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said that life is going by so quick and you're rolling with the punches. But my next question, right off the back of that, is, do you ever get a chance to sit back and reflect on the journey you've been on? And like I say, with Artemis as one half of the Odyssey and breaking out as a bit of a solo star in 2024, have you reflected on what a bloody awesome year you've had?
I think the last time that I properly sort of sat and reflected was after the United Wanted show. I was sat in a car with my sister-in-law. We were taking my mum to the airport. Initially, I was going to drive, but my brother had to take my car home because I got enlisted to do the double that day. So I was initially scheduled to face Nico Angelo. That got changed to Jay Joshua. And then on the day, Scotty Rourke fell ill. So I covered in the main event and faced the Wild Boar, as well as facing Jay Joshua. And I think it was after that match with the Wild Boar where I was like, during the pandemic when the world had shut down, I think NXT UK was still cracking on, and sort of around that sort of time, it might have been before, it might have been just after. I remember watching Boar on the telly for one of the biggest companies to have ever existed, and to then fast forward to that point of being able to work with him and sort of having that playing field where, oh, okay, I'm on a level now where, not on his level, that is not what I'm saying at all, because he's incredible. But I'm getting to that point where it's like, oh, I'm trusted with this kind of match. I'm trusted to do the first half main event and the main event on the same show. And it was that point where I kind of reflected and went, this is mental. It's completely mental for me, as like going from a fan 2.5 years ago to then working with the Wild Boar. It was just, I think that was the last time I properly reflected. I obviously get the odd period of times where I sit back and sort of think, but the way that shows are coming and going by, like I remember being told, like up until this weekend recently, I remember getting the Dragon Kingdom booking for our debut in Wales on Saturday a while ago, and then all of a sudden it's been and gone. I remember being told Mark Haskins is coming back to United and that I'd be the one to face him, and then that's been and gone. And like you say, it's just rushing, and then got Wet Cake this Friday, and then wherever throughout October, it's just get through Monday to Friday, and then it's go out and have fun. And you, like I said, because I've got a 9 to 5 as well, you don't often get that time to reflect, but I do take a bit of time whenever I can. I've got a lot of friends that remind me. Y2 Gray, one of the best photographers, he constantly sends me my first ever promo picture that he's taken of me, where it was very skinny, very pale, short hair, random sword and a terrible red cape and a square one championship. And he often will remind me, and I always go back to him and go, why on earth have you sent that to me? I'm finally like happy with where I'm at. Why do you keep bringing it back up? And he's like, I just want to keep reminding you where you were not that long ago. You're talking 3 years ago. And it is humbling when that happens, and it's from a place of love from him, and it is really nice. But yeah, like I say, without a lot of these reminders, I probably wouldn't sit back and go, oh, that's where I was. Here's where I am now.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to that picture, and I probably used that picture when I spoke to you live on the show a year and a half ago, and it's an entirely different world away now, isn't it? And even when I spoke to you a year and a half ago, that picture would have been, a different world away. But now you're in a different stratosphere from that picture for sure. A few people that have reached out and some very kind comments. We've got James Collins, welcome back. Great to see you back, Wrestling Outsiders. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate the kind words. Andy, thank you, Andy. Good to have you back. And Dan Williams, all of these good friends of the shows. Welcome back, Johners. Really, really appreciate it. That's absolutely fantastic. And focusing more specifically on 2024 now then, Chris. And we spoke a little bit about growth. But 2024, I think you'll agree, has been a bit of a breakout year for you in your singles career. You started off as a singles wrestler and then joined in Artemis as one half of the Odyssey and becoming one of the most successful tag teams in the UK. And then kind of going your separate ways, having success. But 2024 has been a real breakout year for you in solo competition, in singles wrestling. Where do you feel you've grown the most? Where do you feel there's been the most amount of growth in your career, your overall game, certainly in the last 12 months, and focusing on this year in particular?
I think I go back to sort of like, I know we had the tag team titles for UBW, but we didn't tag that often sort of this year, and we lost them in June. So realistically, it's only really Sacrifice and obviously this past weekend where we've done a lot of tag work. So I went from doing it so often to then just being put into singles matches. And it was almost like that comfortability was taken away. When I tag with Artemis, I'm comfy because I know one of us has got it. Like one of us is in control. And if one of us falls apart at somewhere, the other can bring us back up. So you remove that element, it's a completely different ball game. I think I've just started playing a lot more to my strengths. I've been very blessed with the level of talent that I've got to work with. I mean, I could rattle off so many names that across various different promotions that I've worked with this past year alone, and even back end of 2023, that each time I'm constantly on them, like any feedback, because I just want to know where I can take that next step. And I'd like to say that I take a little bit each time and I try and put it and find a way to make it work for me. And it's not always achievable, and they might not see that I'm taking it on, but I really am trying to listen and learn. And that's sort of how I've taken every match, regardless of whether I'm the more experienced competitor or whether I'm the least experienced on the card, which has happened a couple of times, especially with Ignite. I think to be given that honor of holding their championship and at the end of November to then walk into 2024 after having only 2 shows there and main event their shows for 3 of them of this year was a wild experience, and one that's not normal, I'm going to say, because it's not really normal to just jump into a company, steal their top belt on your second appearance.
Your second ever show with them, wasn't it? And then you won the championship. And I was going to ask a bit later on, how crazy is it that you got the main, you've had tag team gold, you've had the Future Proof Championship, and the Phantom Weight Championship and the various other titles, including for UBW. But to be given the main prize, to be the main man, and then to be defending these championships in the main event of their shows against the likes of Jay Joshua, Tommy Kyle, how did that feel? I mean, to me, it just like I say, you utterly and thoroughly deserve it. But for you, it must have been a little bit strange to start off with.
When obviously I found out on the day, so on the November show of 2023, I found out on the day, and I found out through Gene Money, ironically, that I was winning the title off him because he was. You
must have thought it was a prank when Jane came up to you and said, "Look, by the way, you're going over." It's like, yeah, all right, Gene.
Yeah, so we were opening in the breakout division scramble match. It's similar to the Thunder Bastard of Progress, the way that there was 5 of us, 2 started every 2 minutes, 1 would come out. I came out last, so my life was easy. I'm not going to say that I had the hard work. I didn't. I had the easiest job. Poor Harrison Leon was running the whole stretch and finished off with me. Bless him. And yeah, I knew I was winning that. I'd been told that, but I think it was about 5 minutes before I went out the curtain. I was putting my knee pad covers on, and Gene Money walks past and goes, "So what do you want to do later, Chris?" And I'm like, "I'm not working with you, mate. Don't know what you're asking me for." And then just this blank stare back at him and his blank stare. And then CJ walks past and he's like, "You've told him, haven't you?" I wasn't going to tell him until afterwards. And from that minute, I was just like, "Oh, okay, this is happening now. I've got to go cash in and I'm going to be the main champion." And it hit me like a ton of bricks as soon as I'd won it. I mean, I'm supposed to be a bad guy, but straight away I was just overcome with emotion because it is a massive honor. You know, it was my first main championship at a company. It came way earlier than I ever thought it would do. It was sort of just after 2 years into sort of coming back from COVID, which I kind of count as the start of my career. It wasn't, but it was. So I think I'd only had a handful of matches before COVID. So it was this massive honor. And I knew I had to turn it up a little bit because Ignite are just such great shows. They get such phenomenal talent in. And I think my first defense with Jay Joshua, there was just a bucket load of talent before us to the point where when the matches were being announced, I was like, okay, there's no way we're main eventing this show. Then no chance, literally no chance. And then, yeah, turns out we are. So I upped it. I got the mask sorted. I got my armor refitted by Camel Bags, who also makes championship bags. So if any promoters need championship belt protectors, go get in touch with Camel Bags. Absolutely fantastic bloke. Sorted my armor to make it quick release, so I wasn't fiddling around with it. Also covered the metal that was cutting me open before each match. So everything came in order where I had the production value. I got some custom music. I was really trying to make the experience on the entrance good, that if anything went array in the main event, everybody's going to be like, well, I enjoyed his entrance. That was a show at least. Almost just, yeah, trying to cover my own back. But it was a real test. It was running 15 to 20 minute matches for probably the first time outside of tag team action. You know, even when I had the Square One Championship, I wasn't running that sort of time matches. It was still quite short and sweet as the Academy belt, even when I was main eventing shows. So yeah, it was a hell of a step up. It was one that I was very much blessed with. And I think being thrown in at the deep end has been my style throughout my career. I know Paul Ash did it with me at UBW all the time. He was just like, when I first came in, he was like, right, deep end, sink or swim. And it seems like that just keeps happening, which I'm not complaining at. It's the best way to learn, in my opinion. I think I wouldn't be half the wrestler I am now, even if I am sort of half decent. It's one of those ones where I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now without those experiences. And Jay Joshua and Tommy Kyle are both fantastic. So again, my life was made pretty easy at Ignite, given the circumstances, and working with people I was familiar with just put my mind at ease. So
yeah. Let's bring up some pictures of your time in United. And you're already with the championship belt there. We'll talk about the gear very, very soon. But there you are, the elation, and kicking Tommy Carl's head in there, I think.
Yeah, he deserves it, man. He really deserves it.
Absolutely. We've actually had, funnily enough, Tom Hollyley reach out. Yeah, Jonas, love Chris asked. He means Chris Aries, of course. Damn it.
No, he doesn't mean it. He's done that on purpose.
Let's just bring up that picture one more time, shall we?
Can we get the video and just play it for like the rest of the hour, and we'll just sit here and enjoy it?
I can arrange that. Let's keep that picture up for a little bit longer, shall we? Let's keep that picture up for a little bit longer. But I did mention there that, and I've constantly praised your growth in your kind of physical appearance and the effort you've put in to your physical appearance and your gear as well. And I'm going to bring up some pictures here. And I think that one of the biggest growth areas and biggest evolution of Chris Aries now has been your gear. And let me just find some pictures here if I can, because we jumped ahead a little bit there. But look at that, the gear. We'll talk about the helmet in a moment, but absolutely phenomenal. And we give a shout out to the makers as well. I'm not sure what show that was at, but that looks like some proper Braveheart shit there. I don't know what's going down, but that looks really, really cool. And just the gear, both yourself and Artemis look absolutely incredible. And I mentioned about the physical appearance, looking pretty damn sharp there, my friend. So I mentioned that I think your physical appearance, you've put a lot of effort into it, certainly over the last year and a half, 2 years. The gear, the mask, the helmet. Tell us about how this all came together, because I think we're pretty close to getting pretty much a total package now.
Yeah, so with sort of carving down, I think the last time we spoke back then, I was at probably my highest weight. I was really putting on size because I was very underweight, very, very underweight at the start of my career. So I lumped on a load of size from the Christmas to the March, and then it was a case of just trimming it down. And I'd managed to do that. And then, as you always do, you trim it right down and you go, right, now I'm too skinny. Let's put the weight back on. And it's this vicious cycle. With the gear, those two sets, the red and black ones and the pink and blue ones, they were done by Southern Scoundrel. A really great sets of gear, which I am keeping. I am going to get the names changed on them so I can keep wearing those ones because they're just fantastic. I mean, obviously, one set's our tag gear and has been for ages. So it needs to be in keeping. I'm very traditional. I like tag teams that have matching gear, and it's a gripe when I see a lot of them that are different without reason. Obviously, there's certain situations where it works, but for me and Artemis, we are a proper tag team. I like to think of us as a proper tag team. So I want matching colors, similar styles. So they will be revived again with the armor. I got it. I think it was an Amazon buy.
No way.
I think it was an Amazon buy, but it was obviously one of those sets that just comes as a metal, and it was chopping up my shoulders where it sort of connects and round the side where it connects. It was carving me open, and I was having scratches all over my body before matches were even beginning, or I'd need the ref to help me take it off, or Artemis even to help me take it off. And it just, if I'm doing singles matches, I just couldn't rely on it. So it went into hiding for a while. And then, like I said, Camel Bays just did me a massive favor, fixed it up, put some padding in there, and made it quick release so I could wear it again. And then from the second it was wearable, I was like, right, well, I don't want a proper Spartan helmet. I want a crown. I want this side of it. I'm the top at Ignite. I need to have a crown. And I'd got in touch with the Face Forge, who I'd found out about through Spike Trevay, because as soon as he came out with his Vulture mask, I was like, right, where'd you get that done? I need one. And he told me where it was. I got in touch with the Face Forge, and initially had quoted me about 6 or 7 weeks from the January. So it was not going to be ready in time for the Ignite show. And about a week before, he's gone, I got excited and I made it. So it's ready. And I was buzzing because I was like, right, now the full package is there. Now it's by the time I walk in for that match with JJ, I'm going to have the music. I'm going to have the mask. I've got the armor. I've got the title. I'm ready for what I envisage that first defense to be. So it was just, a catalogue of chaos all coming together at one time, and it worked out well. And I can't recommend the Face Forge enough. It's such a fantastic mask. He asked me what I wanted. I gave him a very sort of outlandish sort of request of a crown with an MF Doom mask, but it's also wearable, but not like easy breakable, but also not something that's going to weigh my head down. And I think he'd AI generated an image and then drew it all up, 3D printed it, painted it himself, and then went, cool, Brilliant. We're good to go. All measured up to my head. And it was just fantastically done. And for about the 3 weeks it took from the start of the process to getting it, it was just fantastic. And it's something that I've only really used at Ignite, and I think once at United with the mask, it's sort of, I like to see it as like my big fight feel sort of attire. So I kind of want to keep it for sort of special-ish occasions, but with Ignite, it's just a regular staple. That's just what I do there. And I'm trying to find a way to bleed it into other companies. But for me, it's got to be the right circumstance. Like, the custom music I've got for me doesn't work as a babyface. It's too slow. And when I'm doing my babyface work, I like to run around, give out high fives, jump around like a lunatic. That's just the way I do things. I think the more energy you put in, the more energy you get back. And as a bad guy, I can't do that. I can't run around giving out high fives and I've got to slow everything down and basically do the opposite to what I want to do, because I've got such a rush of adrenaline. So it's also allowed me to sort of get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know we spoke at the last United show at a Tap Social, but did you wear it when you faced Spike a few weeks back?
I did, yeah. That was basically just because I wanted the Face Forge derby.
Yeah.
I wanted those pictures of me in my mask, him and his, just because. And I'd asked Mike if it was doable. I was like, look, he assaulted me at the last show. Would I be able to use my heel music to come out to? And I'll try and make it work as best I can. I didn't feel comfortable being a babyface with it playing, but I felt like I needed that one test anyway to see if it would work. So for me, it didn't work too well. So I've got to workshop it and come up with a way that I can do it. But I just wanted that I'm here, I mean business type feel to the fight. And, you know, whether it came across that way or not, other people can let me know. But it's just the way that everything fell together. I just decided I'd wanted to give it a go, give it a shot. I did. And you've got to test these things out to see whether they work.
Oh, I think it gave us a fantastic atmosphere before the bell even rang, to be honest with you. But speaking of United Wrestling, and not the Tap Social this time, but I want to talk about this one here and your match this past Sunday against Mark Haskins. It was a non-title match, so it wasn't for your future-proof title, but from the double-barreled brewery in Reading, United Wrestling, Lock Stock. And it was a bit of a dream match for you against Mark Haskins, someone that you've admired for a long time. And you mentioned earlier when you finally got that call to say, you know, you're going to be facing Haskins in Reading. Let me ask you, what was your first reaction when you got told that he was going to be your opponent for that show?
Pretty speechless. I remember it quite clearly, actually. I believe I was at an Ignite show. I think I was at an Ignite show, and Craig and Mike, who are two of the guys that are the reason why United are what it is. They're just fantastic people, had come down to help out in some way. I can't remember why they were there before the show was started, but they were, and I was stood on the stage sort of just thinking through the match. I want to say it was the April show, but it could have been the first one of the year when I faced JJ. It was one of the two. And I stood speaking to Craig, and he goes, "We're getting Haskins in September, by the way." And I was like, "Oh, no way. Who's he got?" And he was like, "We're thinking you." And I was just like, "Eh?" And it obviously having that sort of however many months it was, whether it was the 5 months from April or the 7 from February, I'm just like, why me? And then all of a sudden, Mike decided to go, let's have him run the gauntlet and go through what would have been Nico and turned out to be JJ, the addition of the Wild Boar, then Spike Trevay to lead up to this match with Haskins. I was like, okay. I was just speechless. I can't thank them enough for the amount of opportunities they've given me, especially this one. This one meant a hell of a lot more than most people realize, because on my second ever United show, Mark Haskins was meant to main event against CJ Carter. Obviously, CJ had to retire with injury. He ended up facing Danny Black. And I was just blown away by the work that was put in and what I saw, to the point where it was like, okay, I'm going to start taking this seriously. And it was that was the catalyst for me to start putting on weight to begin with, to get some proper gear, to really start the wheels in motion. So when I got offered that match, it was almost like the full circle moment. And that, I think the promo that I did after the Spike match pretty much said it all. It was like, I have to kind of prove now that the work I've put in is not for nothing, that I can go with someone like Mark Haskins. And, you know, an ideal world, I would have put the future-proof title on the line. Granted, I would have lost it, but that's beyond the point. So we can thank Tommy Kyle and his fantastic ego for stopping that one from happening. I'll get him back to that Chris Arse comment now.
Absolutely. But I mean, being in the ring with Haskins, was there anything that surprised you about him and about the way he performed, about the way you gelled, the chemistry you had? Was there anything that surprised you about that match or about Haskins in particular?
Nothing that really surprised me. I knew how good he was. I'd watched so many matches of his before this, just in preparation. I think he hits very hard, but that's fine because that's the way I love to work anyway. I think it taught me a lot more than what I was sort of surprised with. It very much was the match that I wanted it to be. It was, okay, I'm not there yet, but I know what I've got to do to get there now. And working with somebody of his caliber, somebody that's been to the places he has, all the information that he's passed on to me and the lessons that I got from being in there with him are stuff that is going to help me climb and get better. There's no way around it. I think anybody who is fortunate enough to work with Mark Haskins will learn something, and Vic Haskins as well. Let's add that, because she was amazing as well post match, before the match, just reassuring me, making me feel comfortable. I think she knew how nervous I actually was going into it, and she was like, "You'll be fine. He's got this. He'll look after you. You'll be fine. Like, you'll be absolutely fine. It'll get through it." And it was just that reassurance that I needed at the time, because I was just a bucket load of stress. But yeah, nothing that surprised me really. I think I just surprised myself more with what came off. For me, it was a blur. From walking out the curtain to the end of the match, it was like a light flash had gone off, and I didn't really remember what had just happened. But from what people had said about the work I'd put in, and that I was able to hang with him to a certain level, obviously not, I didn't feel like it was one of my best personal performances. But I felt like I can take so much away from it that really just overcomes any doubts that I've had about myself during the match. You know, I feel like I said to you before we even went live, I now wish that I had a full weekend of wrestling where I could take the info that he's given me and just put it into practice straight away. And I don't. I've got wet cake on Friday, whether you can class that as wrestling. Yeah, going forwards, it's just going to be hanging on to that and trying to put it into practice. And hopefully, I mean, technically, he's got a future-proof championship shot now, because he's beaten the champion in a non-title match. So maybe in a few months or a year or so, we can run it back again.
Yeah, well, I think the fans that were there in the Double Barrel Brewery in Reading would easily agree that it was a fantastic match. So I know that every performer, every wrestler is their own worst critic, but I'm sure when you get a chance to watch it back, you realise how good it was. And I mean, let's be honest, you're in there with Haskins, but you know, it's going to be an incredible match. I mean, you mentioned about, you know, it being a massive learning experience for you being in there, you know, both before, during, and after. What would you say were some of the biggest takeaways from that you can kind of divulge? I'm sure you spoke and had feedback from Mark afterwards, but what do you feel are some of your personal takeaways from that match, that experience?
I think just my timing in a lot of it, like the timing of how I do things and how to effectively get the crowd invested more than they are, because I can run around like an idiot and just throw moves out there and people are watching and going, whoa, that's incredible. But if you do it in a different layout of beats and like really, it's really hard to explain actually. But it's just like, I think we did a spot where I was kicking him in the chest because he'd done it to me beforehand when he's on his knees. And like, his were sort of 1, talk some, 2, talk some, 3, talk some, 4, 5, 6, 7, talk a bit more, big payoff one. Whereas mine were just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, scream a bit, go for the head kick. And it was like that little bit of like, right, kick, sell, get the crowd in, kick again, and then almost fight through the pain to then get the realization of, right, payback time, and go ham on him. And then just where to be more comfortable. You know, I went out there having not really got my head around the match too much, and just to be comfortable with being uncomfortable is another one. You know, I should have more confidence in my ability that I'm able to deal with the areas where we've got nothing planned out. And I think that's why there's so many great wrestlers. It'll be like, start getting in the habit of not planning anything for your matches and just go out there and work it blind, and that will make you feel better. And I probably should do that a few times, because at the minute that sounds like my worst nightmare. But I've just, got to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and believing in myself a bit more, I guess, is the other one.
Yeah, some good takeaways. And we briefly mentioned them earlier on, but sticking with United Wrestling and getting the opportunity to wrestle Wild Boar, Mike Hitchman, and more recently Spike Trivet. And I mean, 2024 has been the year of these big kind of breakout moments, these big matches, these big opportunities, and even bigger opponents. And when you speak about Haskins and Wild Boar and Spike Trivet, you're talking about some of the best in Europe, and dare I say it, some of the best in the world. But to Wild Boar and Spike, two of the very best to have ever done it, and two more awesome learning experiences, and just overall fantastic experiences for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you add those three names to also working with Gene Money at Ignite, working with Bullet at Tidal, working with Sunshine Machine at UBW, I'm kind of going through some of the top tier of British wrestling at that point this year. And then even when you sort of close it down, Jay Joshua's absolutely killing it at the minute. And I've been fortunate enough to work with him twice, very nearly 3 times this year so far. And I'm hoping that we'll get another one. I've worked with Tommy Kyle, who's been so helpful, and in my opinion is one of the most underrated talents on the scene. You factor in all those names, and every single person giving me a little drop of feedback is just helped me get to where I am now. And like I said, I might not be fantastic, I might not be on their level yet, but I can take everything they've given me and keep trying to learn and progress as best I can. And without that, like I said, I don't think I'd be half the wrestler I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going back to something you said earlier on about, working with Haskins and the nerves being there. And I'm sure to a certain degree it was the same with Wild Boar, and it might have been the same with Spike Trivet. And I've got to say, your match with Spike Trivet was absolutely incredible. And I think the two of you delivered certainly one of the best matches I've seen this year. I'm just wondering, trying to put myself in your position, when you go out there might be nerves the majority of the time, but when the bell rings, do you go into like autopilot or game mode? Do you just feel like, right, okay, now it's fight or flight? Where's your kind of mind at in some of those situations?
So with Wild Boar, it's a bit different because I found out about 10 minutes before my match with JJ that was going to happen, that was going to be the main event. So I wasn't meant to work in whatsoever. So it was a case of I came back out the match after Jay Joshua and straight away got to talking with Boar. And then it was like, right, match is done. And it only hit me afterwards. So that was very much just pent up adrenaline and aggression going into that match of like, right, I'm here now. I've got to do it. This is what we're doing. Let's just get in and like see if I can do my best, to the point where he doesn't go, well, this guy's not that great. But also he was very understanding that I was on doing double duty, that I'd taken a lot of bumps in my match with Jay Joshua, as per usual when I work with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, that one didn't really sit. The Spike Trivet one was very different because, like I said, I've admired Spike for a long time. His body of work speaks for itself. The fact that he held up progress for a year and a half, nearly 2 years, was it? I can't remember how long. It was so long that I forget when it started. And he was always on my bucket list from the very beginning. To be given that opportunity, I knew about that one coming into it. I'd had a few messages with him before because I'd been fortunate enough to meet him and have a chat. And that one, again, it was very much the proving ground, and I wanted it to go well so bad. But as soon as the bell rang, it was, okay, I know what I'm doing now. I'm confident enough in myself. I know I've got the match in my head. Let's try and run it to the best of our ability. And I think it was about halfway through that match when we're lying on the floor. I think there was a "This is awesome" chant, and then we did like a double sit up, and he just started punching me in the face. And his words before the match were, "This is your time to show that aggression," were just playing in my head. So I think it was one of the only times where I'm almost thinking outside of what is going on in the moment and like, right, I need to do this now. And I was just trying to really sell that style of what I wanted the match to have, was that aggression that I'm fighting up, that you can't kill me style kind of wrestling that I've been doing at United.
Yeah. We're going to play the promo video very soon that you released on your socials on Friday. But before we do, I just want to kind of build up to that a little bit. And obviously 2024's, I've already said it, been a bit of a breakout year for you in terms of your growth and your progression in the solo ranks across the UK scene. But going into 2024, did you know that you're going to be focusing more on your singles work? And if so, was there a bit of a mindset shift in terms of how you wanted to approach this year to tackle more of a singles orientated year, so to speak?
I didn't know beforehand. Obviously, we lost the United Tag Championships in the December. So I knew that at United we'd be going on to new things. UBW, I knew that I was doing a lot more solo work due to Artemis's schedule and the way that dates just aligned up with them. It wasn't ever really in the plans, but me and Artemis have always said that if you get a booking and you're free, take it. If it's a singles and then we get a tag booking later on, that's tough. You're booked. Like, we're so supportive of each other in the sense of further your careers with whatever comes in first. And if you want to take it, take it. I know that she's been focusing more on her strong woman comps at the minute. I think she's done 5 and her first one was September 23. So you're talking 5 in a year, which is absolutely mental, by the way. Like, that's ridiculous. And she's smashed every single one of them. So I knew that that was going to have an effect on like how many dates she'd be taking in wrestling, because she'd have to plan around that and her life just being busy and her own personal life. So we took it very much of, we're going to work like whatever we're booked. If we're booked for a tag, brilliant, let's run a tag. And at the minute, that seems to be mainly at Sacrifice and now Dragon Kingdom, which is fantastic. We were supposed to have a tag match at United post losing the belts in May, but Artemis was injured, so obviously ended up tagging with Scotty Rourke. So that would have been another one in the diary that didn't happen. I don't think I was prepared for it or a mindset shift. I'd always started as a singles guy, and I was like, I never want to be a part of tag team wrestling, despite how much I loved it. I just always saw myself as a singles guy, and then actually forming the tag team changed that. And I get it now where I'm like, I kind of wish I was doing tag stuff this weekend rather than solo stuff now. And I don't think there was a mindset shift there. I think it was just, you've got to take whatever's on your plate and do it to the best of your ability. I think I'm more comfortable at the minute in singles matches than tag stuff, but I think that just goes back to how many reps I've done recently in comparison. Like, overall, in my opinion, I would probably prefer to do tag stuff just because I find it so much more fun. You know, I'm working with one of my best friends, just having a blast. We like trying out new stuff. Like this weekend with Dragon Kingdom, we were down at Square One on the Friday, just workshopping new things. And we went, cool, let's throw it in the deep end, do it tomorrow. And it came off really well. And that buzz of it actually working when we're driving home and going, I thought that went quality. I thought that didn't go so well. Let's try and shift this around. And it's like, right, cool. When's the next one? Obviously, like with that kind of booking, you're on the road together. If that was a singles booking, I'm probably traveling on my own, which would have been long. I don't think there was a mindset shift at the start of the year with it. I think it was, like I said, it's just take whatever comes and try and handle it. I think that's the only way that you can deal with stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I alluded to it, and I think a lot of people that are watching this right now might know what I'm referring to, but the promo video that you dropped on Friday evening. Now, I'm going to play it here because it's a great promo video, tells a great story, and gives us a bit of a glimpse into what the change in name and maybe the change in attitude. We'll talk about all of that, but this is a bit of an introduction into Chris ARES.
Representing the Odyssey, the Conqueror, Adonis Payne! He is the Conqueror, it's Adonis Payne! He is the Conqueror, Adonis Payne!
Wow, wow, wow. And of course, this is the graphic that accompanied the announcement and the promo on Friday. But there we go. So we say goodbye to Adonis Payne and hello, the Legion King, Chris Ares. Give us a bit of a glimpse behind the thought process towards the name change, and maybe a slightly different ramped up attitude or persona going forward. Tell us a little bit about the changes that was unveiled on Friday.
So I think it goes back to when I first thought of the name to begin with. I don't think I realized just how big the BritWres world was at the time. I think I took it for granted, and I'd come up with the name Adonis because I kind of sort of just was very underweight and thought it'd be an ironic joke. I remember when I'd come up with it, I was at my old line of work in a Tesco bakery, and one of my colleagues I'd been to the gym one day, clearly not very well because it didn't work for me back then, made a comment because I was feeling my arms going, oh, they're sore. And he was like, all right, chill out, Adonis. And I was like, oh, I'll use that. That'll work for an arrogant bad guy who's severely underweight and probably shouldn't be called an Adonis in what like any line of work whatsoever. And Payne was just because probably like half of the people that are called Payne, I wanted to do the play on words of it, like bring the pain, this, that, the other. And I don't think I realized like how it would affect me going forwards if, like I said, I got my arse in gear, for a better term, because I felt a lot of pressure because I'm not an Adonis. I don't ever profess to be one. I never have done. And I didn't want that arrogance to kind of come through of like, oh, he thinks a lot of himself. And I'd had a few comments where people were like, oh, he's not that big to be called Adonis, is he? He's not that carved out. And I know that probably shouldn't affect it, but I wanted something that I was comfortable with. And the more and more promos that I was filming throughout sort of 2023, 2024, and the more time I had on the mic and the more time it was being announced, and I was facing like the top talent with all really cool names. And I was like, I'm just not really a big fan of mine. Like I love the gimmick that I've got, and I love the tag team, the Odyssey. I think that sort of was a blessing in disguise that I'd picked the name Adonis and that Artemis came around at the right time and we were able to do that. So that was very much the catalyst for me moving towards Ares. Ares, of course, being the god of war. My style of wrestling has always been that I like a war. I love taking bumps. Like a load of my close friends will tell you, I'm an absolute idiot when it comes to match planning. And I'll always pick silly ideas and I'll be like, yeah, you can give me a power bomb on the apron. Fine. Like I work from home on Monday, so I don't need to travel anywhere. Artemis will tell you, like, we'll be planning a tag match and somebody will have like a really cool move. And I'll go from being planned in to do the hot tag to suddenly I'm taking the heat because my hand's up going, I want to take that move. I want to see how good I can make it look, or if I can do it, or how I can do it. So for me, like, I love being involved in a war. I think both of my matches with Jay Joshua have just been complete wars. Like I've felt them on the Monday, but I've given as good as I've got. And that's my way of wrestling is I like the fans believing that I am pretty much dead and buried and then somehow fighting through that. And that's, again, it goes back to the feedback that I've had throughout the year of how I can make that work even better. So for me, Ares was easy. The Chris side of it just came from being me, really. I mean, in normal life, I'm Chris. So I was like, what name is going to be more comfortable to me than my own? And it's still taken some getting used to. Like when we were doing the tag match at Dragon Kingdom, Artemis shouting Chris or Ares to me was a bit like, what are you doing? Like whilst I'm trying to get beaten up before I make a tag, it was a little bit weird, and I think it's going to take years. You know, it was 3 years of my career being called Adonis Payne. It was 3 years of work that I've put into it. But I just felt like I needed the change. I think to make the next step up, I needed a change. I had a few promotions tell me that it was a bit of a sticking point, my name beforehand, and I agree with them. I can't say that I think it's harsh or a harsh bit of feedback. You know, you've got to be honest. And if a promoter is looking at me and going, your name doesn't suit, they're not going to want to put that on their show, and that's every right for them to have that opinion. I wasn't feeling my own name, so who am I to tell other people that they're wrong for not feeling it either? And I just think that it all aligned really nicely. I'd spoken to a few companies about it way in advance of like where I'd had bookings and how I could line it up. I'd got new gear sent out and made up. I kind of like tested it. So I did the Ignite match and ended up facing Arthur Scurro this month just gone. It was meant to be Charles Crowley. Arthur Scurro came in and filled in. And that's one of the matches that I'm very glad it ended on now. Because for people that don't know, shock horror, Arthur Scurro is my brother. So to have my last match as Adonis Payne with my real life brother is something that's very special to me. And something that I'm very blessed CJ's given me the opportunity. And it nearly didn't happen. I nearly didn't have my new gear and everything ready for this weekend just gone. But again, an element of chaos in my career ascended once again. And Broken Heel, fantastic gear maker, was trying to get my gear all ready and aligned up for the weekend. And he was like, I don't think I'm going to get it in the post, mate. Like, it might be running close. And I was like, well, that's not happening. What if I just drive to you on the Friday and pick it up? So I drove down to London, got to his for about 8:30 at night. And by the time I'm knocking on his door, he's literally just finished sewing it together. So it was like, cool, we've got that ready. I'd managed to speak with Dragon Kingdom, who are absolutely fantastic about it. You know, they were like, do you have a Tron? And I was like, I do, but if we're going to do the name change and I can't confirm it yet until I know my gear is going to be ready, like, I can't give you a Tron. And then it was a case of, right, getting the video made up and getting it filmed. And I think I'd filmed it on the Monday or Tuesday evening because it all happened just in a whirlwind where I was like, right, I'm doing this now. It's time to strike. And again, to then have my first singles match against Mark Haskins, who was the catalyst for the first bit of hard work that I'd started putting in. It's now going to be the catalyst for phase 2 and the next bit of hard work. So it was an element of chaos as to how it's come about now, but it's been something that's been brewing for a hell of a long time because I think to give all of myself to this industry, I needed to be comfortable with what I was representing. And I was not comfortable representing the name Adonis Payne in, like, whether it looked like that or not. I wasn't. I'd hear it on, you know, I'd see it on match graphics, or I'd hear it in promos, or I'd say it in promos, see it in videos, and it'd always get a bit of a cringe from me. And I never want that. Not for my own body of work. I never want to be embarrassed sharing my wrestling stuff because of my wrestling name. I want to be happy to share it, and I just desperately needed the name change, and I've been told I've picked a good one by a few people. I mean, evidently Tommy Kyle might disagree and make fun of it, but it's from a place of love, I'm sure.
I think it suits perfectly, and along with that, I don't know how long you've had this in the back of your head or whether you've used it before, but the Legion King. So the Legion King, Chris ARES, new name. Does it come with maybe, you know, a new mindset and maybe, you know, a fresh focus, fresh determination to take your career to the next level? I'm guessing this is all geared towards getting you to that next level, but what does that look like?
It's definitely a system reset, without a shadow of a doubt. I fell into a bit of a rut this year. You know, I've promised people that I've worked with that I would go and train with them at different academies, and that's not happened because a number of various life events have occurred. I've not been working as hard in the gym this year as I would have liked. I had way loftier goals for where I'm at currently, and I wanted to train at new places and get booked at new places. And when I'm not booked, go and help out at new places. And that's not really occurred in sort of the last 4 or 5 months. And it was almost something where I'm like, right, system reset, fresh motivation. Let's go out and do it. With the Legion King thing, that's been something that from when I'd got the crown mask made at Ignite that I'd wanted to try and bed in a little bit, but there was just no way of really like sort of subtly slotting it in there with Adonis Payne. So I just thought, let's go with it now as like a full rebrand. In terms of an attitude change, I think it's just going to be, you're going to see a lot more comfortable me in everything that I do. Hopefully that would have been seen this past weekend. And if it wasn't, then you'll definitely see it going forward. I think there'll be an added edge in areas without a shadow of a doubt. I want to play more into the God of War stuff. So I'm definitely more than happy to take more silly bumps. Sorry, Artemis. And give as good as I get. Really, I want that element of a war whenever I work. I'd love for people to say, "Oh yeah, I went and saw Chris Ares work this weekend. I went and watched him wrestle, and it was a hell of a match. It was a war. Like even if we get 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I just want that sort of kind of correlation. And if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. That's up to me to now go and do that. So it's very much the tag team doesn't change. The mentality is very much the same. I want to achieve everything that I can in this industry. And, you know, that is, again, up to me, but also up to fate at the same time, praying that injuries don't occur and praying that, like, you know, nothing happens that makes me stop working here, like change of jobs in my real life or whatever.
Yeah.
And that I'm able to keep going at the level that I am, because I'm very blessed that I work from home Monday to Friday. My weekends are always free. So, you know, there's never an option of, I can't take that booking because I've got work. So as long as everything stays the same, I'm hoping that it will just be a massive step forward, and it's something that I can then take to maybe the new promotions that said my name was a sticking point, or, you know, take to the promotions that I'm currently at, and people will go, whoa, this is a little bit different. Because I think it's going to take some getting used to for a lot of people, never mind myself. Like, I know that Artemis was very worried about wrong naming me. And it's just going to be one of those things where they're going to have to go, that guy used to be Adonis. Why is his name changed? Don't know, but it is now. And then eventually give it a few months and people will get used to it. I remember when I first started talking about the name change, I was speaking to Charles Crowley, because he's somebody that I go to about everything creatively. And he was the first person that went, just do it. Like, okay, people are going to maybe mention your old name, but in a few months it'll be old news and no one's going to care, and they'll just call you your new name, and it will just be is what it is. So, you know, by next year we probably won't even be talking about it as a big thing. And then he listed off a load of wrestlers who have changed their name already, or potentially have spoken to him about wanting to do it, and he's like, happens all the time, don't worry about it. So,
well, you look at a certain world heavyweight champion, Gunter, and of course he was well renowned on the Indies as Walter. But then that name change happened, took a bit of getting used to. But now I don't think we'd call him anything else. You know, longest reigning IC champion, current world heavyweight champion. That's a good example, I suppose. And
absolutely. Goes back to the old tweet that Keith Lee put out, doesn't it? Of like poor Gunther or whatever it was, or poor Walter. And he's had probably one of the best careers anybody that's been at NXT UK could have ever wished.
Absolutely. Andy's reached out again. Wait, what? Arthur Scurra and Chris Ares are related? Shock horror. Just watched the Arthur Scurra interview from earlier this year to hear more about that. And again, but in all seriousness, it's 1-1 now. There we go.
Damn it! I promised it would never get to 1-1, and then I decided to hit him in the face with a chair before the match was over.
There we go. Let's talk about gold now, because there's been quite a bit of it in your career and quite a bit of it in 2024. I'm going to flash up some pictures very, very soon, but I've got to refer to my screen here because I've got a long list of accolades. But one half of the longest reigning United Wrestling Tag Team Champions as one half of the Odyssey with Artemis. Now, I don't know if the Dog's Bollocks are getting close to that record, but I'm gonna kind of keep you as the longest reigning for now anyway until I'm corrected. One half of the longest reigning UBW Tag Team Champion, 609 days, alongside Artemis, of course, becoming the first ever United Wrestling Phantomweight Champion in October last year. In November, I think it was November, becoming the Ignite Wrestling Pro Champion for 245 days. In June of this year, becoming one half of the Saints of Sacrifice over in Sacrifice Pro, and then you picked up the Future Proof title that same month, I think, the end of June for United Wrestling. So many cool accolades, and accolades you must be very, very proud of indeed, both in tag team competition and singles competition. But quite an impressive list of accolades there. I know there's more. I think you were the longest reigning Young Lions champion as well for UBW as well back in the day.
Square one. I've never held the Young Lions, unfortunately, which is one that's eluded me. Now the Legacy Championship held by a certain brother of mine, which I might have to go and take it off him if he keeps on running his mouth on this podcast.
Let's put some pictures here, because gold is definitely your favourite colour by the looks of it, and that's a very impressive shot. Enjoying a post-match, post-show lager there. And 3 or 4 belts. There you are, more recent picture as the Sacrifice Pro Saints of Sacrifice Tag Team Champions. When you first became the Phantomweight champion after defeating Bullet and Tate Mayfair's in a triple threat. There you are, some more pictures,
which is wild again, because I forgot about Tate earlier. Like, that's another one that just.
Yeah, I've got some pictures of you and Tate here, I think, where he's actually. Yeah, probably not a very flattering picture, unfortunately. And a choke slapper. Sorry, I could have picked more flattering pictures, I'm sure. But like I say, a pretty cool list of accolades, and a lot of those have carried over into 2024.
Yeah, obviously we had the entire of 2023 as the UBW tag champs and half of 2024, which was mental. I remember when Paul Ash first said that me and Artemis were going to win those tag belts, that it was like, okay, well, Tona got injured out of West Side Heat. We need you guys to hold him. Don't know how long for, maybe a little bit, and then we'll send you on your ways and get you where they wanted us to go initially. And the few months turned into few years apparently, and we'd worked with the Cheeky Little Buggers, we'd worked with the Armada, we'd worked with Sunshine Machine, we'd done many dances with Progressive Overload, who are 2 boys that I can't speak highly enough of, even if they love beating me up and I love kicking them in the head. It was one of those very humbling moments that the show that we'd lost it was like really strange. To then go to the next UBW show without the tag championships, it almost was like wrong because we'd held them that long. Again, the United titles are ridiculous because I was the first ever one half of the first ever tag champions, the first ever Phantomweight champion, and the 3rd ever Future Proof champion.
Crazy.
Like I know they're sort of recent in sort of company length. I guess I think they'd had a couple of shows before COVID, or 1 show before COVID, but
two I believe. Yeah, 2.
Yeah, so not that many. And then I debuted on their 5th and have been on every single show since. And now I love Mike, Craig, and Pete. They're fantastic people, and they've just somehow gone, here you go, have the ball, run with it. And every time they keep on knocking it out of the park in terms of matches they give me and everything they expect. I think I've done 3 doubles for them, just because they value me that highly, and I'm apparently a guy they can trust. I remember when Artemis got injured and we were meant to do the tag championship main event in December. I also then won the Phantomweight before, and they were like, would you be happy with double duty? And I was like, yeah, I'll do it for you. Why not? I did it in October for you when we did the tournament, and then that obviously then happened again in July with Wantage. So the amount of shows that they've ran compared to the amount of matches on the top 6 graphic that they normally do, I think I've had like 19 matches according to that. Like, I've definitely not been on 19 shows for them. So it's, them ones are all really humbling because, like I said, a lot of them are just places in history. Like, as long as United runs, nobody's ever going to be the first tag team champions again except the Odyssey, and no one's ever going to be the first Phantomweight champion again except me. So those are all really humbling accolades to hold. Ignite we went into earlier, that was just a mind-blowing experience, and again, my first world championship, if you can call it that, top level. And yeah, to then get the honor with the storylines that we've done at Sacrifice. I know Artemis took a back seat for a lot of my losing name storyline, where she was in a lot of multi-mans, or a lot of the time booked to just either be at ringside for me or come out and like just carry me away when I'd been beaten up, and like, or do my storyline as a tag team, but not really get anything out of it because the focus was on me dressing up as the Dudley Boys, or we were doing Mario and Luigi. That's that sort of stupid style of wrestling. So for her to then get given the Rumble win at the start of the year and have it sort of like go parallel, where I hit the apex by beating Kai, and a month later she wins the Rumble, and then we do the heartfelt moment of her going, yeah, cool, winning the belt off Roth would be fun, but nothing's going to be more fun than winning the tag belts. And then we do the ladder match, which was both of our first ever ladder matches. And yeah, that was really, that's probably it's hard to say because I love all of our tag team championship wins, but I think that one, because there was so many years behind it and leading up to it, and then the moment itself was just so cool. And it's a company that I love so much. They do everything for charity. It's always so much fun. Hustle Malone is just an incredible person, and
Is that the moment there? Look,
yeah, his partner Ace as well. Just two fantastic people that run the show there. Always just doing it just to give people opportunities. Like I was very brand new. Like when they first gave me that match with Kai, they didn't need to. They had such an array of talent that they could have pulled in. And they went, no, we'll give this guy a shot. And that led into a 2-year-long storyline that has now led into
very well.
main eventing their 7th anniversary and winning the tag belts in a ladder match. You know, they put a hell of a lot behind you. They'll give you the ball and you can run with it. And it's a charity show. So, you know, none of us are getting paid. We're not there to kill ourselves to a certain degree, but that sort of love that they show you makes you want to work so hard for them and make Sacrifice an incredible promotion. And they're the first as well to go, look, this isn't a payday. If you get offered a great opportunity elsewhere and it's like a week before our show, just let us know with as much notice as possible. And like, by all means, go and get a payday. And I think there's a few of us now that will go, well, I'm booked with Sacrifice, so sorry, but we're doing that, and just honor the booking because of how great they treat everybody. It's one of my favorite locker rooms, without a doubt. Everybody's just top tier there because we're not there to get money. We're not there to sort of be on top of the card. I think it's one of the only shows where all the talent will finish their matches and the first thing they'll do is just walk around and go sit in with the crowd, get a beer, and just enjoy the rest of the show and support.
It's always a great atmosphere. Yeah,
it's just so. Like I said, every single one of the championship wins is special, and I've probably had way more than most people do at this stage, and it's really humbling. It is really humbling, especially with United. Like I said, having the inaugural titles the 3rd time, and then being their first ever Triple Crown champion as well.
Yeah, we've spoken a little bit, well, a fair bit about Artemis and your pairing as one half of the Odyssey. And all the success you've had. You've had 3 different company sets of gold now as tag team champions alongside Artemis. But you know, obviously, a lot of the success that you've had with Artemis and the Odyssey has been crucial, and it eventually led you to the success you're having as a singles wrestler now. But I mean, just focusing on Artemis, and this was a shot from a couple of weeks ago where she became the UBW Women's Champion. And you know, we couldn't have put the championship on a better performer, in my opinion. But you must be super proud of what she's doing. I know she's been doing a lot of strong women's contests. I know that you've said that she's done 5 in the last 12 months, and continues to place very, very highly in those and compete at a very, very high level. I've spoken to her many times about strong women contests whenever I'm backstage with her, but going to bring up that picture one more time. That's just an incredible picture, and it must make you feel very, very proud of what she's gone on to accomplish, not just with UBW, but other promotions, United as well, where, let's not forget, she is a former United champion.
Yeah, I mean, she is incredible. And, I think the reason why we are such work together as well as we do is mainly down to her. Like, she's the brains behind the operation. I come with the enthusiasm and let's go absolutely nuts for this match, and she'll rein it in and polish it and make everything make sense and make our matches 10 times better. I remember when we did the back end of last year, our last title defense with United, when we faced Lana Austin, Rob Drake, and again the cheeky little buggers one more time in that triple threat match. I had recently what turns out to have broken my foot before then, but she was traveling in Peru for about 6 weeks. I think it was 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Landed back that week, and I had to ask, I was there, I was like, look, I know you're not really in a position to do this, but can you kind of take the reins on our side of the tag stuff here whilst I just kind of lie down and hold my foot? Because at the time I didn't know what it was on. I just thought it was sore, and she'd ran the comeback on her own, and she's somebody I can rely on all the time. And you look at her year this year, I mean, you talk about mine. She's debuted on Rev Pro, arguably the biggest company in the UK.
Country.
In the UK. I I mean, you look at the shows they've done this year. She played a massive part in the women's storyline that they've got going on. I can't remember the Cutthroat Collective, I think they're called.
Yeah,
I think she was involved in her, Evie Madden, Ronnie Knox, just going on, making a debut. Fantastic on its own. She was champion at DOA, the Pandemonium Championship. She's won the United Wrestling Championship this year. Granted, LA Taylor cashed in on her straight away, but she's then gone on to main event the show subsequently the last 2 occasions out of the tap. She's just constantly putting on bangers. And then even as far as this weekend, we've gone and made a debut overseas. I say overseas in Wales, but I'm counting it as an international.
It's another country.
Yeah, I'm counting it. I'm putting the globe in my bio and everything. It's great. But yeah, like her year's been spectacular, and I'm really, really proud of her, because for me, my life is very much work, wrestling, and like obviously my social life then comes into it externally. But she's doing work, constantly training, because she's got so many comps coming up or comps in a few months, rehabbing injuries as well, which is something I could probably learn from and do a bit more. And then, yeah, going and winning championships and putting on top tier matches. Like her match with Simon Quest was absolutely phenomenal when she won that title.
It really was. The crowd went mental.
Yeah. And if that match wasn't as good as it was, I don't think the cash-in would have been as much of a shock as it was. I think the way that they had told that match and the story behind it was just epic. It was so just good. So well done. And I know people were putting on Twitter about me versus Spike Gervais being match of the year at United. With, not in my opinion, it's Simon Quest and Artemis, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a doubt. They made me like start questioning, and I knew what the result was going to be, and I'm on the balcony going, oh no, Simon's beating the hell out. It was just one of those matches that makes you completely fall out of,
become a fan again.
Yeah, it makes you fall, like just get invested so highly. Yeah, it was quality. And then yeah, obviously LA Taylor goes and cashes in, so there's some retribution to be had, which I'm sure there will be.
Well, let's play a little bit of devil's advocate, shall we? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Artemis and LA Taylor have another championship match where Artemis is looking to become a 2-time United champion if she's able to dethrone LA Taylor. I think at their December show, or maybe sooner, but I think it's penciled in for December, if not sooner. But of course, you're the future-proof champion, aren't you? And the advantage of having the future-proof championship is that you can trade in, you can cash in the future-proof for a world title shot, or a United world title shot. So if Artemis were to become the United champion in December, or whenever she faces LA Taylor next, would you kind of fancy having a cheeky cash in on your tag team partner? And if so, have you two worked together? Have you faced one another? Would that be the first time?
We haven't. We've done in that Sacrifice Rumble, we were in the last 3. Right. And what we thought was the last 2, because Freddie Idol was hiding at ringside. So we've worked a little bit, sort of like 2 minutes against each other. And obviously we train together all the time. I say all the time. A lot of the time when we're there, it's together working on tag stuff. But, you know, I would never cash in the way that LA Taylor did post-match. And I can't even see a world where I cash in. I don't think there's a need to. I think what's more powerful than your first ever tag team champions then holding the key to the main belt and the main belt itself? I mean, there's so many doors you can open with that. You could then defend those two in tag team competition. We could defend them separately. We could just not turn up to shows really and just keep a hold of them and never let them go, and just have. We'll just share them. We'll swap them about as well. Like, I'll call myself the main champion on one show.
I'm just throwing that idea out into the universe and see what happens. Who knows? Who knows?
You're really playing devil's advocate. A part of me thinks, John, as you want me to hit her in the face with the belt and steal it again and create another horrifying moment we've already had to deal with, and that's not happening.
Who knows? We could see a heel Chris Aries. And, listen, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm sure that would never happen. I'm sure that would. Now, I'm going to bring up these images very, very quickly and move on to the next one. But of course, you alluded to this Friday. Wet Cake Pro. I don't know what's going on in that match graphic or what sort of match we're likely to expect. We've spoken a lot about Artemis. We've spoken a bit about Arthur Scurra, of course. I don't know if that was what you were alluding to earlier, where that might have been your final match as Adonis Payne, but certainly you were embracing one another at the end.
That one was just after he won the Legacy Championship at UBW in middleweight. I made the save, beating the hell out of Big Wade with a kendo stick, which is quite possibly one of my favorite things from this year. Just absolutely, yeah. And
then there's this picture, I think, from a first round match of the Phantomweight Championship tournament that took place in Reading last October. But I know Andy's watching, or he was watching. He's probably got fed up. But his lovely wife's probably baked some lovely cupcakes or something, and he's having one of those. Who knows? But I want to talk. I want to talk about this, and we alluded to it earlier, but it's clearly another highlight of yours from 2024, and it was at UBW's big show in Coventry, and for your UBW tag straps at the time. But Sunshine Machine, clearly one of the very best tag teams anywhere, and I think the longest reigning Progress tag team champions of all time. That must have been a thrill to step in there with Chuck and TK.
Again, yeah, it was another very humbling moment, mainly because it was the main event. You're talking, we had, I think, every title on that show apart from the Young Lions. And, you know, when you pick the Odyssey against Sunshine Machine to main event over your sort of top title or your women's championship, that it's a big spotlight on tag team wrestling for a start. And, of course, Sunshine Machine are the best. You know, two of the best to have ever done it in this country, in my opinion, when it comes to tag team wrestling. I think their CVs speak for themselves. And two amazing people. I couldn't think of two better people to have that match with. I remember being on this show in the March, I think it was the March or the May, and we said then, because I used it in the promo that we did for Sunshine Machine, we said back then that was bucket list match, and for it to have happened again, it's a tale of my year. It's just another huge name that I've been blessed to work with, and again, to do it with one of my best friends was absolutely fantastic, and I had a hell of a time in there. Artemis was fantastic. She disagrees, but she needs to get over it and realize how good she actually is. And if anything, that just shows how much better she wanted to be, because I thought she nailed it. I thought it was a great match. I thought it was a great main event, and I thought we did it justice. And again, it's another very humbling experience when after the match, both TK and Chuck are coming over and going, we'd love to do that again sometime. And that's probably the best honor you can get when you work with people at that level and you're sort of in our shoes where you're trying to climb the ladder. For them to say that they would do it again, that just shows we did a good enough job.
Absolutely. And believe it or not, Andy is still watching. He's waiting for you to say more nice things about him. We're getting to the end of the episode now. I don't think we've got enough time for more nice words. But we've spoken about so many fantastic highlights. One more that I want to bring to your attention was when you was ring crew for Progress at the beginning of the year. And you got a chance to meet Mustafa Ali. That's a fantastic picture there. But you know, crewing, we've spoken about Rev Pro, but I think, you know, Rev Pro and Progress are, you know, 1 and 2, you know, interchangeable on any given week, to be honest with you, as to which one is the best company in the UK, or dare I say it, 1 and 2 of the best independent companies in the world. They're renowned companies, but getting to crew at Progress, we've spoken about fantastic kind of like learning experiences, and Progress always has top tier talent from all over the world, banger matches. And you there kind of having the best seat in the house. So admittedly, you know, getting thrown around by 1 or 2 of the individuals, or having to catch some of the high flyers. But what was that experience like? And what did you take away from that moment crewing for Progress? I think it was maybe January this year.
Yeah, I think that one might have been just after January, maybe February.
Yeah.
I remember there was a couple I've done. I did the cage match one as well, which was incredible. And I need to get down there more, but recently they've either fell on weekends where I've had a very late show on the Saturday and just getting to London on the Sunday for that time is just. But that was down to Mad Dog and Lee McAteer were getting to sit with Mustafa Ali. He came over to obviously work with Leon Slater in what was absolutely outrageous match. But he'd had a load of things to do, and them two had just decided that on my first time crewing, they wanted me to sit with him for about 2 or 3 hours, and whilst he was signing a load of different bits of merch and getting set up, and yeah, basically just be around the place just in case he needed anything more than anything. And just to sit and chew his ear off for 2 hours was ridiculous. Like,
Really?
just talking
Wow.
about life more than anything, not even wrestling a lot of the time. Yeah, I asked him for a bit of advice, like who wouldn't in that scenario? But at the same time, just talking to him about family life, home life, like traveling, how if he's going to do a tour or whether he's just popping over whenever he gets booked. Like, there's just general things. And he was such a nice guy, just as you'd expect, really. I think everybody that's ever spoken about him on a personal level online has only ever had nice things to say about Mustafa Ali, and I can definitely concur with them that he's just a wonderful guy. And I can't remember if it was that show or the one after where I got murdered by Bullet. I think it was that show. No, it wasn't by Bullet. It was by Irie, but Bullet pulled me in the way.
That's right. It was in the lead up to your title match, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolute murder by Shiggy, which was so funny. Because I remember a few of the other crew going, I was like, so this is the spot I'm catching his dive to the outside, like a crossbody on the wood floor. And they were like, do you need help? And I'm like, nope, I'm sure I'll be fine. Took it on the floor and I went out the back and everybody's like, are you okay? That looked great, but are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. I feel like I've worked an entire match and I've taken one bump, but I'm fine.
Because that was on the hard floor on the outside. No padding around the outside of the electric ballroom, the ring in the ballroom.
Yeah, I think it was just more so. I was like, I'm going to make sure that he doesn't hurt himself. So who cares? And like, I take it. It was a crossbody catch. So for me, it's like I could have helped myself more, but I was an idiot. And I just went, well, the way I take crossbodies is I'll jump into them and kick my legs up and just take it all flat back rather than like catching and like sort of lowering my legs until I fall on the floor. So I'm thinking I'm in the center of the ring, just kick my legs up, jump into it and catch it. So it looks like he completely wipes me out. But yeah, that one took a toll on my back a little bit.
A little bit sore. And as you said, it's a good job you work from home on Monday to Friday.
Yeah, exactly. That was on Sunday.
The laptop on the sofa that day. But let me ask you as we draw this interview to a close, and looking ahead, we've only got a few months left, or 3 monmonths left of 2024. It's crazy how this year has absolutely flown. We're at the back end of September. But you're looking into the future, 2025 and beyond. You've got the new name, you've got the new nickname, maybe a revitalized kind of focus going forward. Do you have any specific goals or goals in general that you'd like to achieve with this new name and new mindset going forward?
I think the very obvious ones are to chase the big companies. I would love to be a part of Riot Cabaret. I'd love to be a part of Rev Pro. I'd love to be a part of Progress. I think they're goals that pretty much anybody in this industry should have or would have, even if they're like, I know it's probably not likely to happen, but it's there. I think they're always ones that are going to be on the table, especially for me. And, that might take another couple of years of learning. But in terms of the short term, to continue just like giving myself to this industry, now I've done the name change, I feel like I can be unapologetically myself with everything that I do, be more comfortable with it. And just the exact same of what I've done this year, have fun in my matches and like enjoy everything that I've done, but also work with some of the best to do it and try and take every piece of information out of their head so I can further my own game. I think that's always going to be the main goal, is just sort of aspire to work with these guys. Because I remember sitting back a few years ago and going, one day I'd love to work with Spike Trevay. When I watched Haskins for the first time, I said, one day I'd love to work that guy. And then a few years later, it's happened. So as long as I keep on speaking things into existence, they might happen. So Michael Oku. I don't think that one's going to happen. He's
Absolutely.
going to take off
Mike
any.
Loku, Luke
But-
Jacobs, yeah, get them all down.
Oh, name them all. We can sit here for hours and just list off a bucket list. But
There we go. And just a quick reminder that a week today, and I'm going to bring up, I did design a little banner for this, but LA Taylor will be joining me Wednesday, the 2nd of October, 8 p.m., not 9 p.m. like Chris here, but 8 p.m. Our usual start time next Wednesday, the 2nd. LA Taylor will be joining me live. And it's been easily a couple of years. I think the last time I spoke to LA on the show was when she just became the Southwest Wrestling Warriors champion. She lost that kind of early the following year, thanks to some shady shenanigans from Charlie Morgan and Jetta. But she's accomplished so much in the last couple of years, going over to Japan this year, recently featuring in World of Sport, breaking out across the UK as one of the biggest independent stars in the UK and across Europe. And bring up that picture one more time. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 championship bouts there. I think she's the proud owner of still a few of those even today. But LA Taylor will be joining me next Wednesday to have a full recap, a full update. And one of the behind the scenes, anyway, one of the nicest people on the UK scene. I've worked and interviewed and spoke to LA Taylor many, many times. It's going to be a blast to have her back on the show. But running along the bottom of the screen are all of your social details. I've certainly got your X and your Instagram there, Chris. But where can we reach out? Where can we find you? Where can we say hi and learn more about Chris ARES on your socials, my friend?
yeah, Instagram and X at the minute are the two main ones. Facebook have decided to be funny about me changing my name on there, and that's not working. So the Adonis Payne account still lives, but I'm desperately trying to change it. So soon enough on Facebook as well. But yeah, those are the main ones that I'll use. Threads, I think my Instagram posts automatically upload there if that's a social platform that's kicked off. But yeah, they're the main two.
Yeah.
And once I get some Chris ARES merch, you'll hear about it on
merch.
yeah.
New name, new merch.
That's a fun one. If anybody wants to buy like 10 Adonis Payne t-shirts, they're going on sale at the minute. So they don't represent anything anymore, but
fantastic. But we've had no other comments from Tom Hollylee. So I think he, that pitch I brought up a few times earlier of you kicking him didn't go down too well. But Tom, we love you. Going to get you back on the show as well soon. But if you've got any parting words, any final messages to your fans, friends, followers watching at home, any final words from the Legion King, Chris ARES?
Just thank you for the support and love, especially from the friends. They know who they are that have helped me over the first 3 years, even those like Hustle Malone, Truman Roswell, Charles Crowley, Arthur Scurrow, everybody that helped me get to this point of changing my name and giving me the confidence to go through with it. Yeah, it's onto a new chapter now. So hopefully I didn't upset too many people in terms of their old merch that they can no longer wear, and we'll get you sorted out with some new ones soon enough. But yeah, just thank you.
There we go. And it's been a pleasure seeing you again, my friend, and having you back on the show. And let's make it a 3 times, shall we, in a couple of years' time. When you've worked for all these companies you just reeled off earlier on, it's got to happen.
Or the next name change in a few months, I reckon. I'm joking.
There we go. But Chris, awesome having you back on the show. Looking forward to seeing you work again. Probably at United Wrestling just around the corner. And I think there's a certain Tommy Kyle that might be vying for your future-proof championship. But we shall see. We shall see. But
street fight in October.
Oh, that's going to be tasty. That's going to be tasty. But Chris, lovely to see you again. And thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on this return episode of Wrestling with Johners. There we go, buddy. Take care.